Okay, now I've got some online distribution hacks. This is the final section for this module, but it's really just to try and summarise what we've talked about and guide you on a few little tips and tricks that I can give you to shortcut and find some fast results when it comes to online distribution. So the first one is just a recap really. So as soon as possible, if you aren't already listed, list yourself on Booking.com and Expedia. They are the two big players we talked about, and it'll immediately, you'll see an uplift in your inquiry volume, your booking volume via those channels, plus the traffic and inquiry volume on your website. Trust me, it will happen. But also along the way, make sure you're putting a channel manager in place, because otherwise it's just going to increase your workload. So Booking.com, Expedia, and a channel manager. There's the first hack. The second one is to try and increase your OTA rankings. Now, I touched on it earlier about optimizing once you've got the basics set up, you're looking to optimize your listing. So this is all about that content score. So again, just follow your nose and be guided by each individual platform, and they'll be telling you your content score isn't up to speed. Some of them even benchmark against your competitive set as to how you're ranking. So you want to be ranking above at least your competitive set, and really there's no reason why you can't have 100% content score on most of these platforms. So you really should be aiming to have that, because that content score actually helps you achieve an increased ranking and more visibility on each individual platform. Next one is all around what's called practicing rate parity. You may or may not be aware of rate parity. So what rate parity is a requirement in the terms and conditions by every OTA platform that you are offering them the best available rate of the day. So for any given day, that the rate that you've got listed with them is as good or better, they'd be happy to have it better, cheaper, than your publicly available rate off your website, is the goal around rate parity. Now, there's been a lot of conjecture in recent times where rate parity could be ending at some stage, and they feel it could be an unfair requirement that you should be offering them equal rates, but for now, it's a requirement of the OTAs. Now, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of hotels who do not practice rate parity. They'll actually have their rate on their website, and they'll actually add, 5%, 10, 15% even to the rate they put out on the OTAs, because that covers the cost of the commissions. Now, you can probably do that for a period of time and get away with it, but ultimately you're going to get tapped on the shoulder by certainly the big boys. They monitor this stuff, and they'll be asking you to either comply or get off the platform. So you can flaunt with it for a while and see how you go, but that's up to you what you want to do with regards to that. What we'd like to introduce is the concept of practicing rate parity for your own purposes, not because you're being told to. So the reason why rate parity is a good practice to do is that it builds trust in the marketplace. So sure, we'd love them to go to your website because they know they get the best rate. And there's ways you can put a best rate or a slightly better rate on your website, a better deal. So if you put something with it, you can actually somewhat undercut the OTAs in that regard, but it's got to be different. It's got to be a different deal. So you can put better value on your website. You might include the Wi-Fi for free on a booking from your website, whereas you may not on the OTA. So that's just one example. But when people go to meta search sites, you want the same rates out there everywhere in the public. You want people to see, when they see that listing of Trivago, for instance, it comes up, Booking.com, What If, Expedia, all the platforms, last minute, it'll list them all there. And if you don't have the same rates everywhere, they're going, their rates are all over the place. And they look even further. So it encourages them to look deeper and look harder if they want to book your hotel. And you know what, at the end of the day, they're probably going to run out of steam and end up booking somewhere else, or they'll get distracted and end up booking somewhere else. But if somebody can go to a meta search site and just see the same rates wherever I go, they're sort of like, oh, well, I might as well book direct, is the plan behind it all. But the key thing is it builds trust in the marketplace. And we've seen this happen where we've moved hotels from not practicing rate parity to practicing rate parity, and we've seen an increase in overall volumes simply by fact of having the rate parity there. And we do testing on it. We say, well, let's practice rate parity and see what the difference is. But when we see the difference, not just the increase in volumes, we actually see whether we're actually better off in a profit sense. So when you take into account the extra bookings and the extra commissions that might be occurring, and if you might have had to pull your rates back, for example, but what's the math look like? When you put all that formula together, are you in front? And the answer is absolutely yes. We've seen it time and time again. So hack, practice rate parity, have the same rates right across the network, right across all the platforms, wherever you can. Sure, play with some packages and deals to try and attract people to book direct, but the general principle is you need to be practicing parity across the platforms, because it's proven that it actually works and actually gets a better result for your property. Guest reviews is another area where you can certainly influence your rankings on the OTA sites. So the more guest reviews you get, and most importantly, the more guest reviews you get and the better they are, obviously that comes down to the experience and a lot of things that are going on there. But most importantly, it is your response to the reviews that really counts. And there's a couple of reasons for this. One, when you're responsive, again, the platforms are measuring this. They're seeing whether you're responsive, and they'll tell you whether you're being responsive. It's because they want you to engage with the guest. And that actually helps your rankings. But the other side of it is people read reviews, we know that. And if you're responding to them, good and bad, they see that you're responsive. They see that you're engaged with the guest. And even if you get a bad one and like something goes wrong, own up, step up to the plate, take ownership, fix the issue, because that response is basically your next ad. It's a free ad for your hotel. And if they can see, like, guests understand that things do go wrong, but if they see you take ownership and you fix the issue, well then builds trust. They go, you know what, sure that went wrong, that guy might have been a whinger, but they fixed it anyway. That's good enough for me. They've got a whole heap of other good reviews. The bad one hasn't turned me off. So responding to guest reviews is really, really important. Another way to increase your visibility on the platforms is using their promotions and specials features. So sure, you may discount rates at times. It might be dynamic pricing and fluctuating your rates, and we'll talk about how to do that in later modules. But rather than just always discounting off your core hotel rate and have that feed out to the channels, if you're feeling you need a little bit of an uplift, if you've got a low period coming up with low holdings, rather than just doing some discounting from the PMS, go into the individual platforms and create some deals, create some promotions. They do basically the same discount. But the difference is that when you've got and I'm using inverted commas, a promotion or a deal or a special on the platform, the platforms actually pick that up and actually are more inclined to put that forward because it's a deal. They realise it's a deal on their platform. You're going to the trouble of putting that on their platform. Now, we encourage you to replicate those deals across all the platforms, so you're again practicing rate parity. But the fact that you've put a special promotion on using each individual platforms, I mean, you may not do it across all of them, but you put those promotions up, increases your visibility, and it's coming up more prominently in front of the next travel booker's eyes. The next one is opportunities adoption. So in most of the platforms, and certainly Booking.com uses the word opportunities, they actually constantly sending you messages like, hey, here's an opportunity. Have you optimised this? Have you considered putting this sort of rate plan up? Have you that? And so we just encourage you to read those, consider them. Don't do all of them, because a lot of them might be sending you down a path they want you to go down. So you need to make your own mind up. And again, we can help you, in the Growth Gurus group. If you've got an opportunity in front of you, share it in the group, and we'll give you the feedback you need to say, well, do you think this is a good idea? Do you think it's a good idea for me? And we'll give you some things to think about to make a decision upon that. But again, follow your nose, be guided by the platform, consider what's being put in front of you, because they want to sell your hotel room just as much as you want to sell it. So you need to understand that mindset. But opportunities adoption is again another good way to optimise and increase your rankings on the platforms. Another little trick, which is a little bit more onerous, a little bit more involved, but particularly if you've got a period you want to fill up, we've seen people do what I would call drip feeding inventory to the channels. So what I mean here is let's say you've got 50 rooms. So rather than putting up the whole 50 rooms for sale, and like we typically would encourage you to put them all up. You know, they're really good at selling rooms, so why not let them try and sell all your rooms? But what you can do, and because their platforms are so intuitive and dynamic and responsive, if you limit the inventory going into a particular month and say, well, I'm only going to give them 10 rooms for this period of time per night. And when your rooms are selling down, they start to then say, oh, only 2 rooms left, only 3 rooms left, only 1 room left. So it's actually creating that urgency and hopefully getting the bookings going through to your website. Obviously what you do when you get down to your last one, you then top it back up and load another 10 in. So again, it's a little bit manual, it's a little bit onerous to do that. You've got to change it all through your channel manager and everything. But it's not a bad, I guess, strategy to consider. And that's all, the only reason I put it there. It's just a thought process. It takes a little bit of work, but. The other thing is, like within most of these platforms, you're now getting things like rate shoppers and competitive sets that you can put in there. So you can, a lot of platforms you can actually create your own competitive sets. So you know the work we did earlier around competitive sets, you can actually go into the platforms and actually select those other hotels as a competitive set and constantly be looking at reports about how you're going against them. How many bookings are they getting? How many bookings are you getting? And what's their content score? What's your content score? So it's really good. You know, all this stuff's really good, and we'll talk about it in the data module. All the information in your own system is really nice, but it doesn't mean a lot until you can benchmark it against something. And so this is the first step in starting to benchmark. So you've got competitive sets, and a lot of those functions also do rate shoppers. So it's actually comparing your current rates, your daily rates, against your competitive set daily rates. And we really encourage you to explore those. You know, there's some advanced things you can do with data and reporting to actually bring that data in to an all-encompassed report and give you some context around how your rates are pairing out. But just by looking on there, it'll actually give you a really good feel, and it's way better than the old school way of jumping in and out of different platforms and searching for different hotels and checking what their rates are on a given day. It gives you a much cleaner view, a more calendar type view of rates day on day, hotel on hotel. But yeah, we really encourage you to explore those once you get yourself populated on the channel. Okay, so there you have it. That's the module number 5 completed now, or the core videos, the core training done, all about online distribution, your multiplied market presence, and that's absolutely what it'll do. And we hope to move you from having this reliance or a mindset of a reliance on OTAs to having them as a powerful tool in your toolkit, and just part of the overall mix of how you get out there, get in the marketplace, get found, and ultimately get booked. So we wish you well with your online distribution.